So there are a few articles out right now that are saying that Rossi and Marquez have called for the hump of Mugello down the straightaway, the crest, to be flattened, to be reduced, because there's plenty of gifs of Dovizioso jumping the motorcycle off that crest. So sweet. We've seen time and time again that the braking zone here at Mugello is probably one of the most difficult, not necessarily because of the speed, but because of the slight change of direction and the elevation change right before it. In combination with the speed. I shouldn't have said that. And honestly, the thing looks freaking dangerous. I wouldn't want to do it.
I just want to say though that this isn't the reason that MotoGP doesn't race in Laguna anymore. But nobody said anything about the turn one kink at Laguna Seca when Marquez would actually have both wheels off sideways on top of that crest. Like nobody said it was dangerous. They just said it was a crappy track. Period. So why are they complaining now in Mugello?
No, that's not true at all.
Dude,
At Laguna, they complained the first year. There was photos of Max Biaggi getting air, and then a couple years later, remember Nicky Hayden said there was like a secret trick to entering the fucking carousel. Like, and what did they do? Or the corkscrew, excuse me. What did they do years later? Bzz, shaved it down, changed the entry slightly for that exact reason.
Wait, Kev, are you saying turn one or the corkscrew?
The corkscrew, right? You come in there. Nicky said there used to be a little bump, but what I mean is they changed the track. They did do that.
Dennis is talking about turn one, which they're definitely jumping the motorcycle at about 100 and I think a superbike will do 160 by then.
Right. But my point being is that they did change an aspect of Laguna that the riders said they didn't like due to safety standards.
Yeah.
I just find it funny too that in the same article that Robert's referencing to, Dovizioso didn't really say that there was a problem, only they're at the limit, and if anybody should be worried about that hump, it should be the Ducati riders.
At least they know it's their fault. Like that's the thing, right? The reason why we have this issue is because it's GP, it's prototype racing. They're pushing the limit constantly, and they still haven't found the limit of how fast they can go down that straightaway. They gain another mile an hour in the corner. They gain a little bit more horsepower. They're going to go another mile an hour down at the end of the straightaway, and it's going to make that braking zone even more difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, I just hope...
Isn't that kind of like how the 800cc backfired? They wanted to slow the bikes down, but they found a way to go faster through the corners.
That's
everybody
exactly
started saying
that
it was dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah, they kind of realized that it was more dangerous what they accomplished with the 800cc bikes. Right. It's always, and that's always what happens with rule changes. It's always unintended consequences, right? You don't exactly know what's going to happen when they change the rules or when this competition continues, but you think you have an idea, and then something unintended ends up occurring, and it blows up in your face.
Exactly. I mean, if Valentino, Marc Marquez are saying, I mean, I'm the last person to be like, oh, they're fucking pussies, man. Like, they gotta ride it, you know. These guys are pussies. The Isle of Man guys, they've done it naked, backwards on the bike, while
please,
drinking
let's not talk
Jack.
about that.
And if the fucking riders are saying it's too much, I mean, you're talking about, hey, man, like, this is kind of freaky at 226.
Oh, God.
Or 221. You know what I mean? Like, these guys are willing to go 200 plus miles an hour, and there's something that started getting a little sketchy. You probably want to listen to them. I mean, I never, ever, ever disagree with riders on safety issues. It's like a blanket thing that I do, that if I follow that rule without even needing context, I think I'll be right 90% of the time.
Well, yeah, it's like your World Superbike bet from last year. Just bet on Johnny Ray. It's actually more correct than that. It's
more correct, right? If the riders are starting to express that something's getting unsafe, I mean, Mugello's been there forever. I mean, go watch Faster. They're like talking about how crazy that braking zone is, like in movies from 20 years ago on two-stroke bikes and shit. Like
at 185 miles.
Yeah,
an hour.
Exactly. It's totally different. Like if the riders are saying like, "Hey, this is starting to get a little sketch." Revisit it. That's what the safety commission is for. That's why riders are on it. And if the riders think it needs to be adjusted, adjust it.
So
I don't really have a problem with it.
What would you two do? What would you change about Mugello?
Whatever they said.
No,
If they're getting air there, shave it down. Make it a little flatter so the direction change doesn't evolve in air.
Yeah, so that's what I want to know. What's your ideal change to the track? Do you shave it down to reduce the jump and make it a little easier in the braking zone? Do you like slow down the last corner? Do you change the rules to slow the bikes down?
No, because like you said, unintended consequences. It's a lot easier to if you say, hey, we want to change. We want these bikes to be going so fast, so let's change the last corner slightly so they have to get on the gas later. Let's tighten the apex or whatever so they're getting on the gas a little bit later or whatever it happens to be. There's ways you can do it without changing all of the rules where it's just Mugello specific.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there that they don't need to screw up this amazingly exciting championship right now just because
the championship's
of
good,
one
the
breaking
rules
zone.
are great, but if we need slight adjustments to the track, make the adjustments.
Rob, for this particular problem with the hump on the front straight of Mugello, could you actually address it via aerodynamics, as in larger winglets or something?
I mean, you could probably reduce them getting air, but I don't know if that would actually make the braking zone any safer. Right? It's hard to tell what's actually the problem here because I mean these guys obviously they're braking so hard into the corner. I mean we saw all the riders in the top 5 or 6 going deep into turn 1 because they got sucked into the draft. They were dealing with the turbulence off the bikes in front. They were going a little faster than they expected, and they'd get in there sideways at well over 100 miles an hour. It's absurd what they will push through in a race and what they can accomplish on 2 wheels. You add aerodynamics and like Kev just said too, it could be more unintended consequences. I mean, that's what winglets got us in the first place, right? The second they were on bikes consistently, everyone started complaining about turbulence. For all we know, the turbulence from the winglets is actually making the braking zone more difficult.
I think maybe that's why I'm not reluctant about like shaving it off. Like that's fine by me as well, but I think it's the unintended consequences because there's been a history of that. I mean, couldn't you make like computer models of everything? Doesn't somebody have like a computer model of the track, and maybe if they just kind of shave it off in the program and then have like these virtual bikes go through, see what kind of effect that does and what kind of unintended consequence that might cause? I feel like we're at that age now that we can do that.
Yeah. No, they actually have simulators for all the tracks and the motorcycles, and they've had them for a while. I remember when Silverstone was added back to the calendar, there was the factories had already run the new track, right, that they had never been to through their simulator to like establish gearing and establish like a lap time. But there ended up being one turn that had a dip in it, and it threw everything off. Like their estimated lap time was like 2 seconds off or something because this difference in one turn from what was in their simulator. Right. So they already have
modeling is that specific.
Exactly. So yes, they already have these simulators. They're already quite advanced. It's just, does it really matter? I mean, like the models are still if models were exactly perfect, they wouldn't call them models. They wouldn't be analogous. It would be exactly the same. I don't know. No one can make a model that perfect. And are they going to model like, 4 bikes following each other into the braking zone with like one bike 6 feet off to the right and that one having winglets, but the one in second not having massive winglets and all this other stuff? There's just too many unknowns. So, I mean, I agree with Kev's point there. Like, make the smallest change. Make the change that doesn't affect the entire championship, that fixes the rider safety issue, and that's it. Just if you make a small change, you're less likely to have massive unintended consequences. And yeah, I really don't want to change the fuel. I don't want to change the electronics. I don't want to try and slow the bikes down because everything we got going now is great.